And we are live. Good evening everybody, or anybody who's watching stream, thank you for joining. Well, tonight we're going to paint this flower. So we're going to have a little bit of fun with it, I guess. I now just have to decide what colour I'm going to use. And can use Naphthol red, or I could go for Otterborn red, which actually is fairly close to the colour of... yeah, maybe that's close enough that I won't even have to bother doing much to it. Yeah, I think we'll go with the Otterborn red. So I've even got some clean mixing cups out just for the occasion. Now, which was that was the water. So we'll get some water. We'll get a cocktail stick or two. We'll use one for the moment. And Naphthol green, black, and some titanium white. So using some airbrush paint we are, but it'll work with the paintbrush as well. So give it a good mix. So yeah, let's drop some paint into this paint cup. I'm going to use it neat for the main rows, I think. So that's about as much paint as I've ever put in a paint cup in my life. Never usually put that much in, because usually I'm mixing it for the airbrush, and when I mix it for the airbrush I don't usually use that much. Okay, yeah, I'm going to use this neat. I've no particular reason to water it down. So we shall just go ahead and see what happens. Never done this before in my life. I've probably got too much paint in here as well, so we're going to just see. I have never ever painted a carved piece before. So you are seeing it for the very first time, as am I. Tell you what I'm going to do with that, just before I carry on a little bit more, I'm just going to see if I can adjust the brightness on the camera a little bit. It's looking a little bit low. Let me just see if I can increase the gain a little bit on this, just make it a little bit brighter for you guys. That should do. Just the white balance so it looks white, there we go. And we'll leave that as it is now. So what you're looking at is me painting a piece that I have carved, relief carved. I'm painting it, first time I've ever painted a relief carved piece. So I have no idea what this is going to come out like. I'm using airbrush paint with a cheap paintbrush because it's all I happen to have, but I'm using airbrush paint, which is just an acrylic paint, water based, so there's no particular reason why I shouldn't use it. I'm using it neat, so it's relatively thick, but I figured it would give me good coverage so that I don't have to spend hours trying to do this. And I've still got little tiny shavings of wood on the piece because it's now coming off on the brush. So I shall just acquire myself a tissue, and then I can wipe off the bits that I get. Right, just trying to get down the sides here first. They're going to be the hardest bit to do. Just because you've got to have reasonable eyesight, and I'm wearing glasses, which kind of argues against the reasonable bit. I'm actually getting slightly long-sighted, so, and I actually could do with a new pair of glasses. So this is very slightly awkward for me, but I will manage. What I intend to do is just paint the rose and the leaves. I don't think I'm going to do the background. I might change my mind after the fact, once I see the end result, but for the moment that's the plan. Now then, generally when I'm doing something like this, I'll have my tongue stuck out. You know, again, just the right angle on the tongue, that's important, you know. Especially if you happen to be an electrical engineer, which I'm not, but that's kind of a joke amongst people, technicians and that. You always stick your tongue out, and I don't know why. Although I'm not doing it now, but because I'm thinking about it, but just a weird old thing. Noxel, good evening, and how are you? And what should I be warned about? Thank you for joining the stream this evening. You're getting to see me actually paint this piece. Which should be fun because I've never painted a carved piece before. And in fact, I don't think I've ever used a paintbrush, well, apart from making plastic models perhaps. I don't think I've ever painted with a paintbrush either. Ultramove, good evening. And Deathbringer as well. And Cannonbear, blimey, we've got everybody in the stream tonight. How is everybody? I haven't managed to catch any of your streams for a little while, Cannonbear. I think you were doing some Perla the other night, which I just caught for a little while. Don't think I said anything, but I was doing something else at the time. So I've been carving this piece, and now I'm going to paint it. So I'm trying my best to see with glasses that aren't quite clear enough at this distance, with a cheap paintbrush, and hopefully it's not too bad for you guys. I've got the cameras on fixed focus because otherwise it tends to react to my to my hands and what have you. So hopefully it isn't too bad for you guys. Just saying, I've got to have my tongue at the right angle while I'm doing this. A 4-man raid. Oh, okay. Well, I don't intend to. I do not intend to repel borders. After all, you're coming to watch me now, so why would I want to repel borders? So I'm taking it must be a friendly raid then, because if anybody's going to try and take off over, then you're going to get booted out. So I shall assume it's a friendly raid, and good evening to all the raiders then. It worked. 4-bar raid. Oh dear. Is that anything like a 4-bar fire? Dear. I assume then the raid is from you, Cannonbear. Dear. I thought I'd cleaned this piece up with a brush last night after the stream, but I'm picking up all the little tiny slivers of wood off the on the end of the paintbrush. Which of course is annoying. Very friendly, thank you. This is the first. I tell you what, you have the honour of being the inaugural raid, and that's quite a difficult word to say. I have never been raided before, so welcome to the raiders. There you go. You are the first, never ever to be repeated. Maybe I ought to carve a plaque in recognition or something like that, perhaps. And I'll probably do it just as soon as I get around to it. And then, I have no idea what this is going to turn out to look like. I think this red's a bit dark, but so what? You know, roses come in all sorts of colours these days, from black all the way through. I think they've even managed to get a blue one, which used to be the one colour that nobody could get. Just painting this with acrylic paint, no preparation of the wood whatsoever, so I'm kind of doing absolutely everything wrong, but what the heck, we'll see how it works. Oh, you can't repeat the first time, Cannon Bear. You can never repeat the first time. No, I won't say that. You can repeat the raid, but it won't be. It'll be the second time, or another time then, won't it? And thank you. It was kind of a practice. Well, it was a practice piece because I wanted to do some carving, and this piece of ash was the only bit of wood I had at the time. Well, at least the only bit of wood I was prepared to try and carve on stream, and I just went for it. A rose is a relatively easy thing to carve, which was a good job because this wood actually turned out to be quite awkward to carve because it's because of the grain in it and the hardness of the wood itself, but it's all a learning experience. Yeah, but if you succeed, think about this, Cannon Bear. If you manage to find your time machine, either this wouldn't have been the first time, or you just repeat the same thing, so it wouldn't be another raid, it'd be the same one. Logic problem, you see. You can only ever have a first one. And doesn't the good doctor say certain things are, what's the word, involute, they cannot be changed? So maybe this is one of those. So when I become famous with with half a million subscribers, I'd be able to say Cannon Bear was the one that did the first raid. And then you'll go down in history, or with history, whichever way you want to look at it. Dear. What have you been doing today then, Cannon Bear? I didn't go looking. This evening before I was streaming, I had my tea just before I started, and I was watching, catching up on a few YouTube videos. Thank you. I was just thinking then, maybe I ought to get a chisel out and scare a few people who joined the stream. Chisel out with this like this. It could make the ratings soar all of a sudden, couldn't it? Dear. Because I was thinking this stuff actually looks quite realistic from a blood perspective. Now then, yeah. I'm going to try and apply a little bit of shading to this, but I think what I'm going to do is paint it all red, and then once it's dry, or when it's substantially dry at least, I'll go back over and try and add a little bit of the white tint on this side of the flower and around here, and a little bit of dark just right in the corner, see if I can. Earthbound. Okay, what lofty ambitions? What in Earthbound, or outside of the game and within the stream? Don't recall ever watching Earthbound, so it's not a game I'm familiar with. Although to some extent it sounds either like a science fiction, or it sounds like a Middle Earth Tolkien type thing, where magic, which is bound to the earth type of game. It's amazing how we have preconceptions of games, isn't it, based on their titles, how it seems to say something. Okay. I don't know. I tend to have I have a tendency with projects to try something that I think I might not be able to achieve, or rather, I kind of look on it and go, well, I don't see why I shouldn't. I have no idea how to do it, but let's have a go. Sort of one of the, for the RC stuff, I thought I'll build a trailer so I can put the tank on it and actually make it look like I'm transporting something. And that was something I sort of went, I have no idea how to do this, but I haven't actually done it yet. I've got the design, which has been done in a CAD package, so I get all the measurements right, but it was just one of those things that I thought, I have no idea how on earth to go about this. And the same with the scratch board I did the other night on stream. It was the first time I'd ever touched the stuff. Literally the first time I'd ever touched the stuff, and I just went for it, and it turned out quite well. Okay. Well, you can tell how much I know about games, can't you, from that? I have a fairly limited attention span for playing games anyway. There's only certain genres that kind of interest me, but there again, sometimes just an odd one will grab me attention. Like Saints Row, for example, is a game I'd never really be interested in. Saints Row 4 is the one where the Earth gets destroyed. Oops, that's a spoiler, I guess. Normally it would be a game that wouldn't interest me in the slightest, but for some reason, watching people, it just got my attention. But I'm kind of an old school gamer, if you like. I love the adventure games and things like some of the point and click stuff. I'm beginning to think this looked better unpainted, but anyway, it's painted now, so I can't do anything about it. I'm not about to try and carve all the paint off. Now I'm going to just try and get in here so I can paint the edge. There we go. I tend to go silent when I do this sort of thing for some reason. I don't know why. Can't do two things at once, you see. I'm sure I lost it, so that's just because I'm a fella. But I can talk and drink, well, I was about to say talk and drink beer at the same time. I can't. Dear. Sorry if I'm just making it a bit awkward for you guys to see. It's I'm just going to go around the outside, and then I'll put the plaque down again so that you can see what's going on. Just using acrylic airbrush paint here, since I happen to have a fair amount of it. Given that that's the other thing that I do from time to time, is airbrushing. Did my own PC case, which is the reason I took airbrushing after a number of years of wanting to do it, but never actually starting. And despite having a reason for doing it, in the first place, and hoping I'd enjoy it, I actually found I really loved airbrushing once I started. But I really enjoy doing black and white airbrushing, monochrome. Which is probably why I enjoy doing things like scraper board as well, because that's a monochrome, and the pyrography as well. Yeah, true. I mean, things like Call of Duty, for example, don't fantastically interest me. I'm not wanting to just go around shooting things for, shall we say, no apparent reason. I mean, I know that's the game; it has an apparent reason, but I don't mind so much things like that where it's kind of like combining adventure with the shooting. I mean, the classic one of that, of course, is Doom, which was if it moves, shoot it. If it doesn't move, shoot it to make sure it won't move. But then you just you're adventuring, you're exploring, looking for whatever, trying to find secret rooms, how do you get somewhere, all that sort of stuff. And things like the Resident Evil series, that's another one that's, again, shoot everything that moves, and then but you're exploring again, trying to find whatever. Yeah. I mean, there's others in the similar sort of genre, so it's not just Call of Duty. It's just the one that comes to mind. But there's a few that are in that sort of class. And actually, I kind of find them kind of find them boring to watch as well from that perspective, because it's kind of like, it's really fast-paced movement, but then whoever you're watching dies, they get respawned, and they just go out and die again, and it's just keep shooting basically, and it's more about marksmanship, isn't it, than anything else. Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, that's true. I guess yes. Certainly with the early one, the earlier ones, latter ones were perhaps not as good in that respect. You had to be tactical. You had to work out, how to shoot something, and or whether to shoot it, whether to try and avoid it, or stuff like that. So. Kind of agree with that. Yeah, that's true, definitely. I'm gonna say I haven't played. I think the last one I haven't played 6. I don't think. So I don't know on that one. 5 wasn't bad, and I guess it really depends on what level you play it at, because obviously on the easier levels there's more ammunition around the place. But I recall 5 wasn't particularly difficult in terms of ammunition. You didn't have to conserve it or go back and find every little cache that you couldn't carry. Um, 5 is the one with the Las Plagas, I think, wasn't it? As opposed to the Umbrella Corporation, and 6 I don't really recall 6 at all. Mainly because I think it's 5. 5's the one I think it is. I got that for the Wii. And it's really quite nice on there, which probably mitigates the shooting everywhere thing, because you have to with the Wii you have to shoot accurately with a handheld gun, so to speak. It wasn't just pointing the general direction, which of course the earlier games it was straight ahead, down or up, and you'd hit your target. With that one on the Wii, you had to actually sort of aim properly. Okay, so before, yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think I've seen a few trailers for 5. I've never seen 6 at all. I think 4 then seemed to be easy as well. I don't know if it had been made easy, because with in 1, 2 and 3 the bosses always seem to be really hard to kill, and in 4 then, the Las Plagas one, they weren't fantastically hard, they were just time consuming. You just to hit them that many times. So I think maybe they obviously changed the focus on it. So welcome to the game dissection the game dissection stream. Dear. think I've probably said it before, but I think the Alt Text Adventure games had the best pictures anyway. Yeah, yeah, that's true. There was always sort of aim somewhere or yeah, or only certain weapons, things like that would really be effective. Your raiders have gone quiet, Cannon Bear. Do you think they've moved on to more profitable fodder? Or are they letting their pirate master take control of the situation? I could just load my paintbrush up with paint and just slap it on here, but somehow it seems more fun to do it in less large chunks. Just do it in smaller bits. Lurking. Oh dear. It kind of suits, for some reason, that word lurking, it kind of suits the piratical motif, doesn't it? It kind of sounds like what raiders would do. Well, if any of you lurkers that are not already following the stream like what you're seeing, feel free to follow me. I don't mind. If you don't want to, that's okay as well. You can always watch a few times and make a decision later. If I finish this before the end of the stream, I think I will be moving on to doing some pyrography, which, if you're not aware what that is, it's using a tool that gets hot to create images on wood. I wish when paint dried, it dried the colour that it looks like when you put it on. Would make life so much easier. Not only in this, but in other things as well. Actually, it's not too bad, just thinking about it. It's going a bit darker, which is kind of looking quite nice. So maybe I shouldn't complain quite so much. It's quite appropriate you wearing the cat's ears there, Noxel, because I think that's probably what I'll do as the pyrography piece. I've had a request to do another particular black and white cat. So that will probably be the one that gets done if we finish tonight doing this. If not, probably tomorrow. How's your pyrography piece going, Cannon Bear? Well, you see, there's a slight difference there. or rather there's a slight difference in the accepted sense of the two words, because whilst pyrography literally means drawing with fire, pyromaniacs of course like the look of fire. Now, they're not interested in the drawing bit, but of course in the accepted sense of the words these days, pyrography is kind of misnamed because it's as I mentioned, there's no fire and I'm not writing, so it's all about just the heat. It's alright. The one thing I can be quite good at is when somebody does something which, you know, like that, which is quite funny. I sometimes have a tendency to recognise it's funny, recognise that's what you're trying to do, but then act as though I'm taking it absolutely seriously. And it's kind of turning the tables on you. I'm trying not to get too much paint down into these grooves. I don't want it to pool in there, and because it will then dry and fill up the gap. So just making sure I just put enough in just to colour it. All sorts of subtleties to things like this. I've never painted wood before, so what I've just said comes from other things where I'm trying to paint a model or something like that and paint pools, and so it's amazing how experience in doing other things can apply to stuff that you've never done before. Well, that's the main body done, so let's just do these couple of petals around here. It looks really dark red on the stream, does this? Doesn't look so bad here. Looks almost black on stream. The camera must be really red sensitive. No, other way around. Red insensitive. So anybody who's watching, welcome. Just painting a piece that I finished carving last night, which is hopefully is fairly obviously as a rose. This was about a week ago. This was just a flat plank of ash, and out of that has come this, what's now a red rose. It's the first time I've ever painted a piece I've carved, so I have no idea how it's going to turn out. This is just the first coat because I want to do a little bit of shading with it, just to bring out some of the curves. So once this has dried, I'll put some more, another layer of paint on top to add the shading in, and what you're seeing on stream is a heck of a lot darker than is actually here. This is relief carving, and relief carving is what you see here as opposed to 3D or figure carving. So figure carving would be carved on all sides, or 3D carving would be carved on all sides. Here this is just carved on sort of one side really. It's not even half the rows. The thing with relief carving is you compress the vertical dimensions, so you take half the rows and squash it onto the piece of wood. And a lot of the skill of doing relief carving, well, apart from the carving bit itself, is to make the object that has been carved seem to be not squashed, for want of a better way of putting it. So it looks natural. You don't look at it and go, oh, that's a squashed rose. You look at it and go, well, it's a rose, and you can see it's curved, and all the shadows are in the right place and things like that. So I'm not necessarily sure I've got that level of skill, but it's just all about practice. And the one thing about streaming is I'm getting a lot of practice at doing these various art forms. I've already done more on stream in terms of art than I've done this year before I started streaming. So thanks to all you guys who watch. You're actually getting me actually making art and producing pieces. So thank you all. Okay, I've almost finished this bit of red. And I've overestimated how much I was going to use, so I've got a fair bit left in the cup, but that's okay. So now I shall wash out my brush a little bit, and then I'll do some of the green. Oops, I've missed a bit on the side. If you see any bits that I've missed, point them out. He says, knowing that you guys don't really have the ability to do that too well, so I am just teasing you a little bit. But actually, if you do see something I've missed, then feel free to mention it. It's always irritating when whatever you're doing, where you miss something, you put all your paints or whatever away, and then an hour later you look at something and go, why on earth did I miss that bit? Yeah, that'll do me. 3D block. Okay, I don't mind you lurking. As I say, anybody can lurk. No, I don't want to use that one. I've got some water around here. That's 4011 reducer. That's expensive stuff. I'm just looking at these two bottles here. One is deionized water and one's reducer, and normally the water actually looks cleaner than the reducer does, but they've been in the bottles for about 6 months, so I'm actually surprised the reducer's still in the bottle. I've got a big bottle of stuff which has dried out, so I'll just put a bit, rather than me going to the sink and clean out these brushes, I'll just do it here. You've got to sort your mic out as well. Your audio visual delay, haven't you? 3D. I don't know if you sorted that. In terms of the mic, by the way, I did try and mention it in the audio settings in OBS, you've got a mic boost option in there. I think it's the third of the last bottom set of things. With my mic here, I've had to boost that up to 3 to get something reasonable out. Otherwise, so because I do tend to talk a little bit quietly, and I'm using a boom mic on the headset, so it's really close to me, unlike your Snowball. But I've had to boost to 3, and I suspect that you've got you're actually getting a similar volume, because as somebody mentioned on the stream last night, you do need to turn the volume of the stream all the way up as far as it'll go. Then you're okay. It's not, you're not over loud at that point. So, Rainforest Green. Actually, I should give it a shake first. And here I am 3D. I'm using my expensive paints. This is the ETAC, Edwards ETAC. But if I'm going to do something, I might as well use the right stuff for it, I guess, or the good stuff. Now this wants to be light. No, I'm not going to do that joke, not on stream. Dear, so it's amazing how far this stuff goes, certainly in an airbrush. 4 drops of paint will cover an amazing amount of space. I'm going to put a bit of white in this. So titanium white. Which really isn't meant for mixing. It's actually meant for spraying as white, but it's what I happen to find. When I went on the shelf, so I'm just going to, if I put 1 drop in here, it's going to be too much. So I could do with doing half a drop, but the funny thing that just struck me is half a drop is a drop. So it's a bit of a silly statement, but anyway, you can get a with dropper bottles like this, if you're trying to get less than what would naturally come out as a drop, then the trick is to touch the either the paint or some part of the vessel, and then the surface tension is broken, and you'll get a little bit less of paint. Use a cocktail stick to stir it, and I always break the points off. Because I don't jab myself with the point of a cocktail stick, which is blunt but sharp, if you know what I mean. And the second one is it actually stirs the paint better, because the pointy bit doesn't really disturb much of the paint. I'm just using little tiny shot glasses here. I've even got some clean brand new ones out just for the stream. I actually want that to be lighter, so maybe I could do with some more white in there. I'm looking at that and now wondering whether I'm actually going to have enough in there. The perennial problem. I hate waste as well, so I don't like having any left over, because this stuff is, I think as Freeze mentioned it, this airbrush paint is relatively expensive. You're talking about 4 or 5 quid for a bottle that size, and 1 drop represents a fair amount of cash, relatively speaking. I don't know how many drops are in a bottle, but it's I kind of hate having more. I always like try and mix as much of it together, so I don't have any on the sides of the cup or anything like that. I'm kind of a miser. I even wash out the cups, so that's not yeah, I'm not even going to bother trying to actually match the colour. I'm going to just go with the colour I've got here, because that's a really light green, and I can spend ages trying to do that, and if it looks really silly I can always just go over it again afterwards. And I'm using a really cheap paintbrush anyway, so I've now got this thing. Looks a bit like a somebody dragged it the wrong way through a hedge. So I'm going to do the edges first. Sorry that you're not able to see much about this. Can't easily move things around. Oh yes, I was going to undercarve this leaf a little bit. Oh well, maybe next time. There's a little bit of variation in the colour mix here. I haven't mixed it particularly well, but that's not going to bother me in this, because leaves aren't a one complete uniform colour anyway, so if I've got some variation I ain't bothered. Makes a good excuse for not mixing it properly though, doesn't it? Okay. Right. Now I do have to make sure that I actually get right down into that gap there, so you don't see wood colour, so at least you believe the leaf might be joined to this rose. This is a bit like a children's colouring book, you know, the lines are there now, just fill them in. Okay, so that's one leaf. 3 more on the stem to go. Now you'd never believe this amount of painting would take an hour, would you? We're at 55 minutes into the stream, and I know when I started doing this just tonight, I didn't think it would take this long. And I know how long sort of some forms of art take, and it's always a perennial problem for artists of all kinds, because a lot of people look at something and it looks like it's so easy or so simple, especially if they're watching somebody do it, and they can't believe just how long it actually takes. So you get artists who are trying to sell the work, and they may be 40 or 50 hours in a piece, and you'll get people thinking, oh, it's only worth a tenner, it took them 10 minutes, why should I pay more than that? And they're just not no idea of just how things actually take quite a long lengthy time, and I'm not actually taking, at this stage, doing anything fancy with this. It's not as though I'm putting shading in or anything like that. And I guess I could have been a little bit more aggressive in painting it and use a bigger brush, for example, but I've not been particularly hanging about whilst I'm doing it. Now, having had a lot of red left over, I've gone and used about half the amount when I mix this green, and I'm nearly out. And I've got a bit stuck. There we go. Just had a little hair drop off. So I'm actually going to have to mix some more green paint. I can remember how many drops of white I put in. What I can't remember is how many drops of green. I think it was 3. If anybody happened to have been taking notice and remembers, please let me know. Comes with being a stingy person, you see. I come from Yorkshire. There's an old joke about Yorkshiremen. The definition of a Yorkshireman is a stingy Scotsman. Which relies on you knowing the stereotype for Scotsman. But I shall leave that one to your imagination for a little while in case you don't know. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We'll put 6 drops in, which means I want 4 drops of white. Come on, 1, 2, 3, 4. Real awkward thing is that, because if you squeeze the bottle too hard, you suddenly get a squirt of paint, and then you'll either have to throw it away or mix a lot more green in to take up the colour. And white especially, because it's quite a thick paint, but almost any of the bottles tend to do the same thing. Really annoying little things they are sometimes. And yet I go on some of these streams, not streams, sorry, YouTube videos and things like that, where you see people like as Free Mentions, Drew Blair, and he'll just stick a great big squirt and he'll half fill this bottle, and all he'll be doing is a little piece about the size of the leaf, and he'll have used about half a cupful of paint. But I'm a stingy so-and-so. Right. This may or may not be the same colour, but since leaves may or may not be the same colour, that's not a problem. Yeah, it's a bit lighter. Since I'm the artist in residence, then I get to say whether the colour's right. So excuse me if I keep pulling it out of your vision. I'll try and keep it in. One of these days I'll try and get a camera that actually looks down better, or at least looks over my shoulder. I need to get some form of suspension mount for the camera. Or most probably actually I'll make one. Normally if I'm painting something like this I'd be holding the brush a lot closer to the end, but what I'm actually trying to do is keep my fingers out of the way so you guys can see, at least have some idea and see what's going on. And it's interesting from my perspective to try and paint that way, because of course you get more control. The closer you get to the tip of whatever it is that you're using, the more control you have over it. Of course there are limitations, like with chisels you don't want to get that close to the tip. Yeah, as you can see, this one actually is considerably lighter. Not too bad from that perspective. These leaves sort of do come from underneath the plant, so the light is on this right hand side, so these leaves may well be lighter anyway. I know they're not, well, they are slightly in the reference image. There's not a great deal of tonal difference between these two on the right and the two on the left, but there's a little bit, and so I am actually being true to that image even though that wasn't the intention. I'm sticking my tongue out again. I know you guys can't see, but I just wonder what the evolutionary advantage is to sticking your tongue out while you're doing something, you're concentrating on something like this. Because if everybody does it, it's got to be some sort of evolutionary thing that nature has built into everybody. I just cannot think of any advantage that it gives you. If anybody has any suggestions, feel free to make them. Of course, if I had a face cam on now, I'd be supremely conscious about doing things like that and looking completely silly. So I'm not quite sure whether I'd be happy to look completely silly and stick my tongue out anyway, or I'd be so self-conscious that I'd be making sure I didn't do it. Total Ninja Cat, good evening. Hi, how are you? It's been a couple of nights, I think, since I last saw you on stream. So how are you doing? Got a little bit of unpainted wood right down here in this. I want to just make it join up completely, so there we go, filled it in. And now I'll do the stalk. I am thinking, do I change the colour slightly for the stalk, or do I just paint it the same colour? I'm going to make it a little bit darker. So I'm going to drop a black paint in. So I'm just going to dry clean this brush. I'm just going to rub the paint off of it rather than give it a complete wash out, and I'm going to drop a drop of black paint into there. I'm not doing too bad, thank you, Turtle Ninja. It's been a warm day up here in Yorkshire today. Oops, there you go. Just turn the bottle upside down and you get a drop coming out whether you wanted it or not. Don't normally sort of you wouldn't normally add white to something and then add black to it to darken it down, but you generally sort of mix another batch because it's never, you never sort of really get a good colour when you start mixing black and white, but in paint. But since I'm only doing a small bit, and the colour goes sort of muddy, weird sort of thing, but Free if he's listening probably understands that. It sort of doesn't, it's not a very clean looking colour if you do it too much, but just for this it will be acceptable. So it's only a tiny shade darker, and I may even have made it about the same darkness as that, but we shall see. Or alternatively it may look exactly like the piece I've just done. Ah well, can always paint over it. This may or may not need to be treated as an undercoat anyway. And it's trying out quite nicely as and not showing through bare wood underneath, or too much of the wood structure. I can see a couple of bits of red that I missed. You guys didn't point them out to me, did you? Ah dear, what will I do? Gotta start looking for my own mistakes, you know. It's probably about now we end up in a competition between ourselves as two spots mistakes first. Of course, me being the artist, I reserve the right to call any mistake a deliberate action on my part to change the look of something. So, there we go. One layer of paint all over it, and that's dry enough to do something with. So what do you think? What does it look like? Does it look like a complete waste of time, or does it look better painted than it did just carved? How often do I watch other streams? Generally every day, Total Ninja. I mean, after I finish streaming tonight, which it'll generally be about 10 o'clock, I almost always will go watch 3D Bloke, who you might have seen in stream earlier, who's an airbrush artist. During the day, when I have time at work, because I'm lucky enough to be able to do it, I can put a stream on, and I'll generally watch some of the creative streams, partly because I can glance at them, but the creative streams actually interest me a great deal. I love watching people do things like this. Pink355, hi, how are you? Thank you for joining us. Hope you're enjoying what you're seeing. That's a beautiful rose. Thank you very much. No, I'm not Scottish. Do I sound like serious question? Do I sound like I've got a Scottish accent? No, I am south of that border. I'm what you would call a stingy Scotsman. In other words, I'm a Yorkshireman. Born and bred in Yorkshire, though the county of the white rose. I'm laughing because what's in front of me is a red rose. The red rose is the symbol of Lancashire, which is the historic enemy of Yorkshire. The War of the Roses comes from Yorkshire and Lancashire, the two roses, the white and the red. And I've got I've got a red rose in front of me. So does that mean I should sort of set it on fire or something, maybe? I'm not doing that sort of pyrography. Now then, I'm going to do what I shouldn't do. I'm going to put some. Well, I'm going to. This is sort of dry. I'm going to try and. If I was doing this with airbrushing, I'd either take a lighter red, or I'd actually possibly just take white itself and ghost white over some of the areas, like here and around here. If you look at the reference picture, you'll see a lighter, because that's where the light's shining on. There's a reflection. And I'd just ghost some white on there, and I'd get that sort of highlight. And I'd probably ghost some black just in down here as well to get the darker areas. But I can't do that with a paintbrush. And I don't have any dry paint, which I could do it with, like if you get powder paint, you can do it with powder paint, because you can brush it off. But I've got wet paint, so I actually will have to mix some colour. And well, I'm going to waste some paint, but what? Okay, well, accents. Pink 355. Thank you very much for following as well. Thanks, most kind of you. What sort of previous work were you thinking of? I don't really have any. Well, I don't have any completed carving pieces up here. I actually can't. I've got a couple elsewhere in the house, but I can't actually find them at the moment. I can show you carving wise. He says, putting white paint on my desk. Carving wise, I can show you sort of some half finished pieces. Well, not even half finished, some started pieces. Let's have a look. Where is that? There it is. Just to show you, this is kind of how I've only just really started. This is roughed out. This is going to be a sleeping cat. So it's really just roughed out. You can see the rough outline of the head and the body, and then it's just an iterative process of keeping on carving that. So that's just the start of it. Another piece which has got a little bit further is a 3D figure. I'm not turning it over, but that's a 3D figure. First time I've ever tried a 3D figure, and that's proving challenging, shall we say, because all of these are first time things. For pyrography, there's a piece that I did on stream about a couple of weeks or so ago now. So that's done, and now I'll be careful with this one. I did scraper board for the very first time last week on stream, and I'm about to show you my very first effort. Never done it before, and I'd never even touched scraper board before this, so be a little kind. But there you go, that is my very first scraper board. And the camera's slightly out of focus. Just force it to focus, there we go, and then I'll turn the focus off. So I'll just put that away. This scrapes very easily. That's a present for my wife actually. So that particular person on there is a guy called John Miles. He's a musician. He's been in the charts. It was a number of years ago now. The one piece everybody tends to know him for is a piece called Music. He's he writes songs these days for a lot of people, and he's also Tina Turner's musical director and lead guitarist when she tours in Europe, and he organises musical director for the Night of the Proms in Europe. And my wife's known him for a number of years, so that was a present for her. And what else might I have? I've got a couple of other pyrography pieces I can show you. I think I've got one on here. Yep. Practice piece, but let me move the paint out of the way. That's a practice pyrography piece that I did. That's as it's, well, you won't be able to read it because it's backwards to you guys, but that says Avro Lancaster. So that's a World War II bomber, on which I've made a newbie mistake, which you probably won't spot, but those who have been on the stream before probably did, and you can see the propellers. The effect of seeing propellers in an image is a video artifact because of the frames. So in real life you'll never see propellers unless they're stopped. So I can always sort of say, you know, all 4 engines have stopped and he's trying to get down really quickly. But that was, it's on hardboard, is that, so it's a practice piece. I practice on hardboard, A, because it's slightly harder to do, to get colour on it, and B, because it's cheap. As in, it didn't cost me anything for that particular board. And actually I have got another piece which I was doing as a practice, which I'll just show you as well. Here you go, you're getting a complete gallery. I started doing that one as well. Again, that's a railway locomotive. If you really want to get technical, it's a class 66. I can tell that because it says 66 here. Locomotive numbers I happen to know, because I've only just recently found out, but generally the first 2 digits are the class, so it's the make, if you like, or the model number, and then the next digits are a serial number. But I just saw that image somewhere, and I did my own version of it, and then I transferred that version onto the board and was just doing that for practice as well. So I shall put that back. And thank you, by the way, for that first try. I'll show you another couple of pieces as well, since I've been talking about airbrushing and 3Ds around. He's seen these anyway, but I will show you a couple of airbrushed pieces. Again, first time I did them. You're seeing all the first now. That's an elephant, which, if you didn't realise was an elephant, I guess I've done a worse job than I might think. Let's see if I can make it just a little bit clear, or a bit more. There you go. So first time I've tried an elephant. And again, just trying it to see if I could do it. And another one is, this is a western town. So you know, the cowboy town thing. It's actually a film set, is this one, but that's done in it's a monochrome. I love monochrome work, but this is sepia rather than black and white, so it's meant to resemble like an old photograph. And Total Ninja powder paint, yeah, you know, literally black or what, you know, coloured powder paint, like, you know, you get used to having in school, that sort of thing, or watercolour paint, which, you know, you can scrape the, you know, the watercolour paint that comes as a block. You can scrape that and create a powder. I'm sure you can get, you know, sometimes they get called poster paints as well. So you can actually just take a dab of that on a dry brush, and brush it over things, and if you use black, for example, it'll look dirty. If you use white, it will tend to look like either dust or mud, or you can actually sometimes get highlights. It's not as good for that. That sort of technique is used a lot on models for weathering. Ooh, Lost in House, thank you very much for the host. And which reminds me, I must get my my OBS banner thing for Lost. For Lost. A special one for you, Lost, but for hosting to come up. And welcome to all 41 viewers that are watching on Lost stream. Thank you for staying behind. I guess Lost has just finished her stream this evening, so I hope you guys all enjoyed it. We've just finished to this stage painting. Oh yes, painting this carving, which I finished on stream last night. So this, about a week or so ago, this started as a flat piece of floorboard or wallboard. And then we have done a process called relief carving, and we carved the rose out of it. And tonight, I thought we'd try painting it. It's the first time I've tried painting a carved piece, and I didn't actually see when you guys joined, but you might well have just seen a little bit of an art show, some of the other pieces of work that I've done on and off stream. And I thought that looked odd. I've got a sliver of wood dropped into my paint. And good evening, Lost, and thank you for the host again. How are you doing? You're just going to chill over there? No, that's alright. I think 3D is doing exactly the same thing. So I'm just mixing up a little bit of white, quite a lot of white, with this red, and I'm going to decide whether I actually... Steve H500, thank you very much for the follow. That's very kind of you. I hope you're enjoying what you see. I'm just mixing up some of the some red paint with some white to see if I can do a little bit of highlighting on here. I have realised my white paint needs a really good shake before I use it in an airbrush next time, because there's lots of tiny bits in it, and lots of tiny bits are not good for an airbrush because they jam it up, or they don't jam it up as such. It doesn't physically jam anything, but it does stop the paint coming out, and then it either gets really annoying or you splatter paint all over your piece. Okay, so I'm just stirring it up and looking at the colour I've got, which is, despite the fact I've put a lot of white into this, it's not actually much different to what's there already. For some reason the camera is showing this rose up as being extremely dark. You're probably seeing it as almost a really dark blood red there, which it's not in practice, so the camera is lying in its colour rendition, I'm afraid. But hopefully you've got an idea of what it looks like now. Then I'm going to take some of this and I'm going to apply it in some areas where I want highlighting. I have no idea if this is going to work, but we shall see what it looks like. So I'm just going to well, it's a bit lighter. I'm not sure you can see it on stream. You sort of can, I guess. I'm going to apply it. I may need to put a bit more white into here, but I can always layer more than one. Let the colour dry and just put some more over the top of it. I was going to, having done this, put some black in this colour and do some dark areas, but I think I'll use a new bit of red to do that. So now I'm just going to go around the rose, even if I do have to go over it again, and probably will add some more, but I'm going to just put the base red on. I'm just going in where the light, if you like, or the sunlight is shining off the rose. If you want to see what it should look like, there's a reference picture in the bottom left of the frame there, and that's kind of how it's meant to look. So just kind of looking around, trying to get it to look somewhat right. One of the things you can do with this, he says, because I've never done it before on here, but when I've done it on models and things like that, you can actually accentuate some of the shapes, so you can make things look a little bit more rounded. For example, with relief carving, one of the problems, or one of the challenges, is how to make something which is essentially squashed look as though it is, fully 3D. And sometimes, a bit of paint or colour like this can actually help that. By just shaping the highlights and things like that. So I've got a few, put a bit up here. I'm probably going to wait while this dries and then add a little bit more colour, perhaps closer to white around, just to make this stand out. But by doing this and then adding stuff on top, I've got a graduated colour, and it sort of the colours will sort of fade together, shall we say, so it won't look like a sudden solid line. But that will do for that. So I want to do a little bit darker red, I think, because just inside here I really like to get that nice and dark, just to look like it's going really deep down into the bud. So I shall get another mixing cup. I'm being a cheapskate now. I'm going to use a used cup, one I've used before. So I just drop. I don't need much of this, so I'm going to be cheapskate again. As I said earlier, definition of a Yorkshireman is a tight-fisted Scotsman, just to use a stereotype. So I'm going to put at least 2 drops of black into this red that I've just put in here, which may be too dark or it may not, but we shall see. And I now want a new cocktail stick. Oh dear, I'm really splurging tonight. If you're lurking quietly there on stream and you feel like seeing me do other things like this and pyrography, which is what I'm going to start when this piece is finished, or possibly carving again in a little while, then feel free to press the follow button, so that Twitch may well then hopefully tell you when I go live. Or if you wish, you can follow me on Twitter. I don't tweet particularly often, but there is a tweet goes out when I go live, so at least you'll be able to catch the start of the stream. Now that really is a dark red. I may even actually, oh no, it's getting better. So you guys probably, I'm off frame here, but I am just mixing paint in a paint cup. It's a really dark red, is this. To me, this looks as dark as what you're seeing this look like on the stream. So I suspect this is probably looking almost black to you in this cup. Is that too dark? Is that too dark? I'm asking myself the question. In actual fact, it's gone slightly brown, which is you might think if you add black to red, it would just go darker red, and to some extent it has. But black isn't actually black. Generally, blacks are really dark blues. and so you get some colour shift. So you get it's heading towards a purplish colour, which and brown, which is sort of a little bit further around the colour wheel. I'll put a little bit more red in this. Sometimes what you end up doing when you're mixing paint is you'll do something like that, and I'll add a bit more red to it, and I'll go, no, that's now a bit too bright, and I'll add a bit of black, or I'll go, no, actually it needs to shift a little bit more lighter, so I'll put some white in. And after you've got about half a cup of paint and you still haven't got the colour you want, you generally end up throwing it away and starting again. That's a bit better. Okay, and all I want this for is a thin strip just down here. So a lot of trouble just to get a small amount of paint. Yeah, it's brown. It's brown. I'm just painting it onto this bit of paper to one side here. Now I could add another colour to it, which will shift it back to the red, or towards the red. I'm not going to bother. I'm actually going to put it in there, but I'm going to make it really narrow, and I'm going to use a little trick. I'm not going to use a paintbrush. I'm actually going to use a cocktail stick to do this, because it's got a reasonably sharp point, and cocktail sticks are really rough cut, and the point almost becomes like a paintbrush at times. So I'm just going to try this, and then, because I'm not adding much, if it really looks bad, it won't be too difficult to. Oh, that's not bad. It ain't too bad in that area there, so I might just switch back to the paintbrush in a minute. But it's kind of one of the tricks. If you're painting, you don't have to use a paintbrush. You can use anything that achieves what it is that you're after. And I often, even when I'm airbrushing, I will often get out a cocktail stick if I've got something that's really, really fine that I want to do. Despite the fact that some of the airbrushes will create hair-thin lines, it's sometimes easier just to get a sharp pointed object, and I've been known to use a scalpel as well if I want something really, really fine. So one of the things that's kind of useful about the cocktail stick here is, because it doesn't hold a lot of paint, when I put a bit down, I can push it around, because the surface underneath is painted. It's the paint doesn't immediately sort of stick, so I can just push it around, create a bit of texture, or just thin it out a little bit so it's not as thick a colouring. Yeah, I need to make the shape correct, so it's got to go into the corner there. So when you're painting or drawing or anything like that, paint what you see, not what you think. That's one of the things that a lot of artists or sculptors will say to anybody who asks you sort of for advice. Paint what you actually see. It's very easy to paint what you think should be there. So if you're actually trying to do something from real life, you can really have problems doing it, because what you're trying to do is represent what you think it should look like. Whereas if you just look at it, and one of the easiest ways of looking at things is to take like a piece of card and cut a small square out of it, so you're only seeing a small section of it, and then look at what it is that you're trying to do in that same small section and just copy the shapes that you see. So when you lose the perspective of the whole piece, it sometimes becomes a lot easier to do things and follow that maxim: paint what you see, not what you think. Yeah, I'm not exactly copying what's on the reference image, but it's, it gives a major inspiration. So one thing it does help with is things like where the light falls on something. That can sometimes be, if you're trying to do that from imagination, then sometimes trying to work out where the light is, what should be highlighted, what should be dark. Reference images can help, even if it's not something that you're actually intending to try to reproduce. I think I'm going to cheat a little bit here, and I'm just going to do something like put a little tiny bit down there. Not because I can actually see that in the reference image, but because I can see a shadow there, and I'm using my what would you call this, prerogative, if you like, just to do it that way, rather than actually sort of get a different coloured paint out and try and... No, that'll do me. Tell you what I'm going to do. Since I'm streaming this, normally I sign my pieces, and I'll generally assign them with my actual name, but I'm going to sign them. I'm going to sign this one with my Twitch name. So just the initials. Since I put that extra red in here, it's now gone purple. Which just goes to show that black isn't black, it's actually a blue. So there we go. ZA, Zerrigan Art. I'm going to call that piece done. I could do some more to it. I might actually put some actually, yes, let's do some more to it. I was about to call it done. I'm going to do some more to it. I'm going to put some more white in this red. Let's see. I'm going to put some more white in this red, if the white will actually come out of the bottle. It must be shy. It normally doesn't have a problem. You usually get more than you want. So let's really add a bit of that. Let's get it. See how that does. Just to add a couple of more highlighted areas. What's that look like? That's not bad. We'll stick with that. Let's try what that looks like. Put a bit on a piece of paper. Yeah, that'll do. So just adding a little bit more highlight around the edges here. and we'll put some up into here. And we shall add a little bit across the top of there, and now let's see if I can cheat a bit here, because there's a little bit of unmixed white paint. I'm just going to see if I can get a bit of that. Nope, it's mixed. Well, I was just trying to see if I can get a little bit of the unmixed white paint, just to act as a really bright highlight, but I don't actually want to use white itself, because white would really stand out as being too bright. But what I may have to do is just go in a little bit after with a slightly whiter colour. Drag that down there a bit. Yeah, that I will call. I've had enough of doing that. I'm going to mix it up if I carry on too much more. So there we go. We shall call that complete. It took a little bit longer to paint than I expected, but it is now done. Just give my brush a little bit of a clean. So I was possibly going to intend to start a pyrography piece tonight, but I'm not actually going to bother now. It's getting close to time when I would normally want to stop the stream. I generally will stream somewhere between 8 and 10 o'clock UK time. We're coming up to there now, so I don't really want to start another piece just now, because basically I'll just get set up and then we'll have reached the end of the stream. So I shall save that until tomorrow night. But what I can do is show you a little bit about it. I've been asked to do another pussycat, which is like where's the other one gone? There it is. So those of you who may not have seen on stream earlier, let me move this out of the way because it's got wet paint. That was the pussycat that I did on stream about 2 weeks ago now, and as a result of doing that, I've been asked to do another pussycat, and I'll show you a picture of that one. So this is what I'm going to be doing. It's a very similar cat. The markings are different though. It is two different cats, but I'm going to be doing this one next on stream, and I'll do it on a piece of wood exactly the same as the one you've just seen the completed piece on. So I'll start that tomorrow night and then see how that goes. It's probably going to take about a week of work. There's generally about 10 to 12 hours in something about this size. Oh, it certainly is with the pussycat because of the fur, which is all individual. I was about to say individual hairs. I've not literally drawn every individual hairs, but there's enough hair-like texture in there that it looks like everything is done as individual hairs. And this cat being a black one, black works really well for that technique, so I've discovered. Then this one's going to probably take about the same length of time to do, because most of his head is black, and I may or may not do the little bit of the body there, just depending on where it sits on the plaque. So that's you've obviously seen a little bit of carving. You've seen a pyrography piece I did before, and what I'm about to start to do tomorrow. And so looking into the future, there is some more scraper board to do. I've got plenty of spare board and a few ideas. I kind of am itching to try and do an image that I've wanted to try for a long time, and that's Earthrise. It's an iconic NASA image, of the Earth taken from the Moon, and the Earth is just risen above the horizon. You've got the half Earth, just like you get a half moon, and you've got the moonscape just in front of you. I'd kind of love to try and do that in Scraperboard, or in airbrushing, but I'm not set up to do airbrushing in this particular position, so that's something I'm going to perhaps look at doing in the future. And a couple of other things. I don't know, I do so many different crafts or arts that I'm kind of torn what works well on stream or not. Actually, I'll show, talking of things, this was something that I was asked about the other day on stream, and I'll show you. I did show it on stream then, and I need something black to make this visible. Something black. Okay. Let me get rid of some paint, because I'm about to bring something over that I don't want to get paint over. So let me just remove my paint pots to somewhere else, and hope I don't get visited by one of my models. Yeah. So just something black. This is glass engraving. So this is just literally a waste piece of glass that I got from a glass retailer who'd thrown it out in a bin. So just asked him if I could have it, just to practice on. So this is shallow glass engraving. So we've got a rose. You might notice a theme here. I do a fair bit of roses because they're quite easy to do, to be honest. And then we've got another an outline of the rose. So this is kind of how that started. So start with sort of just outlining it, and then going back in and doing all the shading, which is using grinding stones or diamond bits, depending on the look and that you want to achieve. And actually, daft as it sounds, you use erasers on here as well on the glass, so we actually use rubber. Generally speaking, it's on the end of a high-speed wheel, but it is just plain rubber, and we rub out the lines, and when you do that it goes a bit like the leaves are here. There's another image there, just to play with. We've got this, it's a raspberry. It's actually the logo of the Raspberry Pi Foundation. So if you're familiar with the Raspberry Pi, the little computer, that's the symbol. And then just for fun, that's one of the houses out of that western town, just done small and just ground into the glass. These were all done actually with a very high speed rotary air driven tool, actually a dentist drill or a dentist technician drill, and dentist drills, and that those will quite easily cut through the glass just by here. You won't really see them, but you see these 3 marks here. This is just practicing depth cutting. So these have been done with a diamond tipped ball, little tiny sort of 1/8 diameter tipped ball, and just ground through almost through the depth of the glass. I was just practicing what it looked like at different depths. So it's possible I might do some of that one day, probably not at the moment, because I actually need to set the camera up on the other side of the studio here, where I've got an extractor fan, because you might not appreciate, well, you might or might not appreciate, when you're using a high-speed cutter on glass, you are literally turning the glass into glass dust. You're grinding it away in little tiny particles, and you don't want to be breathing that stuff. So I have an extractor fan, and whilst I generally wear a particle filter mask when I'm doing that with the glass, or even with wood for that matter, as long as I'm reasonably distant from the workpiece, then I don't stand, there's no chance of me actually breathing in the powdered glass. So. But that, as I say, that may be a little while before I can get a camera set up over there in order to do that sort of thing. And I do all sorts of other art, so I don't know whether you guys who are watching would prefer to see you give me your opinion. Do you prefer to see things like carving and pyrography, or the scraper board, or completely different things every time? Just to give you an idea, I do rug making, for example, both knotted type rug making and actually like a punched type of rug making, where you're driving a punch through the material to create the loop of wool. What else? Okay. I just love doing all sorts of things. I can't do any model making on stream at the moment just because I don't have the space for it, but maybe later this year I'll do that as well. Right, unfortunately it's getting to 10 o'clock at night, and this big light next to me is heating up the space a little much, and if you're living in the UK you'll know that the temperature in the UK at the moment is quite high for this time of year. It's just in the studio here, it's 25 degrees Celsius, which is around about 80-ish degrees in that other scale. So it's quite warm here. The big light makes it so you guys can see what I'm doing, because if I turn it off just to show you, it goes really dark. It goes really dark for me as well, having got used to it. So but as I say, it does heat things up, so I'm now looking forward to cooling off for a little while before I go to bed. So what I want to do is thank all of you guys who have been watching, and those and the people that came across from Lost stream when she finished for the evening. Thank you for staying and watching, and hope you liked what you saw. Generally I stream between 8 and 10 PM UK time. That's it's now 10 PM in the UK, so wherever you're watching from 2 hours ago until now is generally when I stream. At the moment 7 days a week, subject to any other engagements, but generally about 7 times a week. So feel free to drop in. If you'd like to be notified, of course there is the follow button, or as I mentioned earlier on stream, there is a link there just underneath the video window for Twitter as well. About the only thing I tweet is when I go live, so you're not going to get flooded by tweets from me. It's not. I am quite conservative in that respect. But again, thank you all for watching, and hope to see you again on stream. Good night.